Learned to play an instrument. Learned a second language. Applied to college. Applied for a loan. Started a business. Started a blog. Shared a picture. Shared a moment. Turn your wish list into a checklist with Internet Essentials from Comcast. When you're connected, you're ready for anything.
Hello, I'm Ivan Weiner, Executive Director of the Albuquerque Film and Music Experience. Welcome to AFMX 2020, the virtual edition. As COVID-19 impacted so many festivals around the world, we are very fortunate and happy to be able to present an incredible program, thanks to our sponsors and our volunteers. Because of them, we're able to continue our tradition of bringing together filmmakers, musicians, students, and an entire community to share stories and collaborate into the future. This year we have 73 incredible film projects, with filmmakers doing live Q&As after their screenings. We also have our Intimate Conversation series that we'll be offering for free through Facebook Live. Please go to our website, abqfilmx.com, get your tickets for all of the events, see where you need to go for the free ones, and share with all of your friends on social media. It's going to be a week to remember. You can also make a small contribution through the ticketing pages for any of the events to the AFME Foundation. Finally, I'd like to thank our core team of staff members and volunteers who have worked so hard to bring the virtual experience to life. Kira, Ariella, Carly, Cindy, Shane, Sabrina, Barbara, Jerry, Sean, and Sam. This fest is for you. And it's for all of the volunteers who have contributed over the past 8 years of AFMX. From all of us at the Albuquerque Film and Music Experience, thank you. Now, let's fest. Good afternoon and welcome to the Albuquerque Film and Music Experience Intimate Conversation Series. So excited about this lineup today. We had Stu Lyons on earlier, producer of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul and many other projects. And now we are so happy to be joined by Mike Silva and the one and only Giancarlo Esposito. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, so great to have you here. Giancarlo is no stranger to the Albuquerque Film and Music Experience. He helped kick off our event in 2013 and was the recipient of the 2013 Robert and Sybil Redford Award for Creative Achievement. And, you know, thinking that this was 8 years ago at the beginning of our inception, the inception of the festival, and seeing where your career has gone now, it was big before, it has just exploded now. And, you know, you have so many fans here in Albuquerque, throughout the state of New Mexico, throughout the country and around the world. So we're really honored that you took the time today to be with us for the Intimate Conversation.
Thank you so much, Ivan. It's my pleasure. And the reminder that 8 years ago, you know, Albuquerque Film and Television began is just blowing me away that the time has gone by so quickly. You've done a great job keeping things together, especially in this time and tide.
Yeah,
but it's a wonderful and welcome thing to have this organization in the community.
Yeah, thank you. We're going to get into that, you know, being a tough time right now with COVID-19 and the industry a little bit. But first, yeah, I want to make introductions because a lot of people are asking me, you know, outside of New Mexico, who's Mike Silva? And, you know, we want to know a little bit about him. So, you know, Mike, 20 plus year hospitality and tourism veteran, skilled across several disciplines within the industry. He's worked in hotel sales, food and beverage operations, destination sales, restaurant management, and not-for-profit management. He has a lot of experience talking to and managing people, and just one of the nicest people you'll ever meet here in New Mexico. There's a connection with Mike and Breaking Bad because he started the Albuquerque Trolley Company in 2007. And after season 5 of Breaking Bad, he and his partner started the Breaking Bad tour on the Trolley Company. That has turned into one of the biggest tourist attractions in the country. Not just in the state, but in the country. And Albuquerque Tourism and Sightseeing Factory, the mothership company, runs the Albuquerque Trolley Company, the Lux, Albuquerque Downtown Ghost Tours, Duke City Peddlers, ABQ in a Box, 4 different companies that Mike runs. And he started a really great company in 2014 that's been a big part of giving back to the community called Rude Boy Cookies. And it's a sweet shop serving fresh baked cookies, ice cream, and milk on tap. So go to Rude Boy Cookies online, whether it's social media or their website, check it out, and support Mike in this endeavor. Mike is a fierce Burqueño, frequently speaking across the city on entrepreneurship and philanthropy, serves on many, many boards. He's the current president-elect of the UNM Alumni Association. He's an executive board member of the Golden Apple Foundation of New Mexico, board member and Small Business Regulatory Advisory Committee, which is appointed by the mayor.
Ivan, I think everyone's frozen.
We're good. I'm good.
I'm back.
Okay. And in 2019, the 20th anniversary New Mexico Ethics and Business Award named Mike the winner of the award for individual excellence in ethical business practices. Mike also is one of the creators of Burke Against Racism. So, you know, I wanted him to be part of this conversation because of the topic. You know, Giancarlo was a major actor back then, and he was in Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. And that movie in particular had a huge impact then, and certainly continues to have an impact now, especially with the social environment on a global scale. Just a quick rundown of Giancarlo's career: 4-time Emmy Award-winning nominated actor, has received widespread acclaim for his chilling performance of drug kingpin Gustavo Fring in AMC's primetime Emmy-winning drama Breaking Bad. He made his debut in 1966 at the age of 8 with the role in the play Maggie Flynn. His feature film roles include The Cotton Club and Desperately Seeking Susan. He's also worked with director Spike Lee in the films Do the Right Thing, Mo Better Blues, School Days, and Malcolm X. Notable television series include Once Upon a Time, Revolution, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, Godfather of Harlem, Jet, The Boys, which is on and absolutely amazing right now. This amazing Disney Plus show called The Mandalorian, Creep Show, Westworld, Once Upon a Time, The Get Down, Drunk History, and Community. I could sit here all day and talk about Giancarlo's bio. He has been in so many things over the years with so many amazing actors, producers, directors. You know, one of my favorites, of course, I have 2 favorites: The Usual Suspects, I'm sorry. And there's also Gospel Hill, an incredible movie that Giancarlo directed and acted in. So, you know, I'm going to touch on that a little bit. One thing that I can say is that everyone that I talk to about Giancarlo that comes to New Mexico to film, you know, it's like he's a brother to everyone. Sam Jackson, oh my God, the list goes on. Bryan Cranston, Aaron Paul. I mean, all of these guys respect, look up to, and have a camaraderie with you and just respect your work like I've never seen before. And all of it's definitely something that, you know, you have created by playing such diverse roles, caring about your characters and caring about the audience, you know, when you perform. So, you know, 4 Spike Lee movies, you know, how many other people have been in 4 Spike Lee movies? What's that relationship with Spike?
I've actually done, when Spike, we began talking after he worked at Maxie Cohen's first run features in the East Village, cleaning films. I was doing a play at the Negro Ensemble Company. Spike had an idea for a film about a black fraternity that eventually became School Days. And from that early inception and working with him on that, he wanted to do 5 for 5. So I've done 5 Spike Lee films, and I'm very proud to have a good friendship with him. He has gone on to be a very prolific director and has always been such a force in making a statement in his films. And so to be cluing in to Do the Right Thing right now is the one movie that was a happening. At the time, it was a happening, made by a very young and maybe a bit angry Spike Lee. Tawana Brawley was happening in New York. 1989 was a very hot summer, blackouts, and Spike was really pointing up the injustice that comes to people who don't have a means, who are poor or who are black. Most of the time it's black and Hispanic people, and he was pointing out the tension that also existed between those groups of people labeled as minorities, which is a word that's questionable. Minority comes from the word, the Greek root of that word is min, which means less than. But anyway, so he pointed up some really specific and really interesting social and political issues at the time that made the movie powerful. That, with a great soundtrack, and you could really feel the heat in that movie. It makes it one of his best films, and one that has longevity for me. So I've seen the movie. It's so funny you mentioned the drive-in, because I think I know that the parking lot behind O'Neill's is the drive-in. An interesting place to see that particular movie. There's also, I think, a couple of murals in that neighborhood as well that support the movement, I'll call it, because the movement's bigger than what we've labeled it as. But happy to be here. And that my relationship with Spike is a good one. And I guess the point I'm making is that he has a way of moving his life mission and choices in support of people who don't have a voice, and that makes him extra special to me.
Yeah, and other actors, you think of Spike Lee films, Denzel Washington, of course Malcolm X, Lawrence Fishburne. I know that you kind of grew up in the industry with Lawrence. His career has also, I think, been launched early on by Spike Lee, and what Spike's mission was in terms of not only supporting a story and a message in his filmmaking, but the actors that go along with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Lawrence and Spike and I have a history that goes way back. Mine with Lawrence probably a little further back than Spike, but certainly we came together on School Days. Spike's first movie he wanted to do was a movie called The Messenger, about a bicycle messenger in New York, a black bicycle messenger, being himself. I think he did it for about a month, and he took on that persona of a cyclist. And he had asked me to do that movie, and so we started talking after he came to see me in a play. And we never were able to have that movie happen. So then he turned his attention to a different script and tried to raise the money for that. And it was really a full-on musical about the experience at an all-black college in Atlanta, Morehouse College, where he went. And the film was an interesting one, but that's when we all converged together to work together. And Lawrence probably has been asked to do a number of Spike Lee films, but he's I don't know what his number's at. Maybe it's only School Days. He didn't do Malcolm X. He wasn't in Do the Right Thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's only one film, but certainly he has went on to work again with Spike on a band version of Blackish, which I have yet to see, but have just got a hold of. One that they made and couldn't air. But certainly Fishburne is outspoken in his political ideas and in the movement of Black Lives Matter, and is someone who's conscious with the show Blackish, although a comedy, really delivers on some strong and powerful messaging.
Yeah, and speaking of the messaging of Black Lives Matter, the organization itself, not everybody agrees with what Black Lives Matter, that, all of the details within the organization, but, we all know and agree that Black Lives Matter, that, brown lives matter, that all lives matter. The humanitarian look on things, Mike, if you want to come into this conversation, when you created Burkett Against Racism, let's talk about that mission and how it relates to, looking at a movie like Do the Right Thing.
Yeah, hey everyone. So yeah, my motivation to create Bootcamp Against Racism was, it was a powder keg moment. It was in direct reaction to the George Floyd situation, which impacted a lot of us. Not that that was unfortunately unique or new to our country. It just happened to be so visual for so many of us. We watched a man basically get choked out in the street in real time and live, and it was a powder keg moment for me. I have started walking this world with some pretty powerful, influential brothers, Black men that I consider brothers. And we got on the phone and started talking to one another, and quickly decided that we needed to try to use our platforms and our community equity to do some good, try to make a difference with a focus on Albuquerque. So my brother Charles Ashley III, we got together and decided we were going to start creating some conversations and kind of putting the fire at people's feet. And so in our circles, we walk amongst area CEOs and major players in this community, and we basically challenge them to step up, step out, kind of put your name on it, so to speak. Put your face on it. We're gonna start creating events, and we want to see you there. We want to hear you speak on it. We want to hear you show support. And that kind of was the beginnings of Bootcamp Against Racism. And now here, several months in, we've created a little bit of an impact, and we're excited about what's to come. And just had a phone call this morning, actually, with some folks about what our next move is going to be. We've been able to generate enough funds where we could start donating back into the community and making a difference. So excited about that for sure. I just wanted to mention that for those that are watching, to please stay on, because towards the end of the conversation, there will be a Q&A session where the fans can send in some questions, and we'll ask Giancarlo some of those questions. So yeah, I just wanted to, this is an intimate conversation, and like a lot of us watching, I'm a big fan of Giancarlo, and so we want to try to get to know the man, get to know the person a little bit. So I just wanted to start, Giancarlo, by asking you a question: where you're from, and not so much what town you were born in or what city you were born in, but a little bit more of like where you're from, your people, your community, about your beginnings in this world. Like, what did that look like for you?
Well, I was born to artists, and in my conversations lately in Zoom calls, I talk a lot about artistry and what artists do. I'm from all over the world. You can easily find the city and place and time of my birth, but I was raised in a household that had an African American mother and a Neapolitan Italian father. And so you can imagine those are two different cultures that were weaved together. In Europe, I was born in Copenhagen, raised in Rome, traveled throughout Europe with my parents, have a brother who was born after me. And so our household culturally was a mix of the African American spirit that my mother had and the Neapolitan feeling and passion that my father had. But I was raised in the world of humanity because I was exposed to all different kinds of people at a young age. And so I came to this country, America, when I was 5 years old on a boat that landed in New York, and then again was exposed once again to cross-cultural and multicultural kind of people. And so, you know, when I ask myself where I'm from, Mike, I got to be honest, I'm a traveler. I was born in a gypsy world, and came up on stage, moved into television and film. And so I realized the nature of my work has taken me all over the world. And I'm curious and in wonder of cultures that are very different than the one I grew up in, which was really an Italian Black household, and then the one that I'm a family of, which is really a world of thespians and artists and dancers and audiovisual people. That's another family that I belong to. So I blend all those worlds in the worlds I'm living in wherever I find myself. That's you know, it's kind of my answer.
No, I love that. I was recently a speaker at a peace and justice event, and I kind of spoke to the fact that kind of where we're from, the location and the time is really not, that important. You can look it up, but it's more about kind of where we're from in terms of our community, our family, our network, our friends, our mentors, and kind of.
Well, yeah, I agree with you, but you can look at this, I could really take the question completely differently as well. I'm from a world that has always been one that has turned its head to injustice for many, many years, and people got used to it. So, Mike, when you start talking about, George Floyd, well, didn't we also see Eric Garner choked out on the street?
Yep.
Right? Didn't we, we've seen this over and over again. So I'm from a world where people choose to stand up when it may be appropriate for them. I'm from a world where people are afraid to use their voice to challenge whatever system they live within. And that system is relegated and delegated to a community. Doesn't matter where you are. We happen to be momentarily in Albuquerque, New Mexico. But what if we were in Portland right now? As I know people from Portland, what's going on there? Well, we're kind of safe in the community in which we're in Seattle right now. I'm from a world that, every time I leave my home, I got to make sure my seatbelt is fastened, that I have my driver's license, that my blinkers work, and then I get on the road and I have my protocol if in fact there's the chance that I get stopped for a reason other than driving erratically, having a blinker out, maybe not wearing my seatbelt. And then my hands go right up on the dashboard. My license comes out first before the police has even gotten out of their car. And my license goes in between my hands on the dashboard. I roll all the windows down before that, and I'm waiting because that's what I have to do. Was I born in that world? No. When I came to America, I had a choice. I chose to live in this world. My parents chose it. I'm here in this world that has all of this baggage that comes with who I am. So oftentimes the license will go up, I'll be looking straight, or I'll let the officer reach in over me and get it, look him in the eye, to look at my license and then go, oh, then he realizes I'm from this other family that he recognizes or knows, right? So he's like, oh, I know you. Okay, oh man, it really? Blah, 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 blah. Either goes back and writes me a ticket or not, or says, I'm sorry, why'd you stop me? Oh, you just look blah, blah, blah. So I'm from that world where as an African-American man who likes to roll undercover, I'm always aware that I could possibly be in a situation at any moment that could put my life in danger. So, when do we start to wake up to what's really happening? And Mike, kudos to you for dealing and working through the community to get some awareness, because I live in a lot of worlds. I explained to one of my children, I've been reached out to from 2, 3 police officer friends of mine. One retired, one still active in Austin, Texas. Hear the story from my daughter about, out shooting in Sheffield, Mass. Police stop her, recognize, oh yeah, that's that girl with the camera. What are you doing out so late? All these things. She gets nervous. I said, listen, that's a fraternal order, right? I had to have her hear the flip side. Rich Richmond, my buddy from, Texas, every month hits me up. I know he's in the streets. Yeah. And he hits me up. How you doing, brother? Yeah. And so I try to explain to her and have people understand that's a fraternal brotherhood.
Yes.
Right? They look out for each other. I'm in a fraternal brother and sisterhood family of filmmakers. We're somehow special. I get let off the ticket. I mean, you get my point here. Yeah. Right? So to work within the community that you're in, to start to bring consciousness, that's where it is. Yes. Because aggression is anger. And that aggression and that anger doesn't facilitate an open mind to understand the other side. Mm-hmm. So when my girl looked at me and went, yeah, fraternal order, right, get it, family, yeah, we got to bust that out. I'm like, yeah, but how do you bust that out? You bust that out with education and understanding and development, not through violence. So this period in our time, if I were to quote John Brown, the abolitionist, who was a white man, there is no change. There will be no progress without blood. So yeah, we're close to civil war in so many different cities. How do anger is not changing the game. It's fomenting more hostility and random acts of violence because people are kind of stressed out, right? So to work within the community, Mike, wonderful thing that you're doing to change the consciousness slowly. So for example, the easiest example I can make, and I have 2 more points to make, is that you don't send a regular police officer to a mental health dispute, or a drug related, you send the drug guys who have the epinephrine, who know how to cool somebody down without choking them out and killing them. You send someone who understands people who may be going through an episode. That's like socially progressive, right? We're so far behind in this country, right? That's a duh to me. You don't send a cat with an M16 to a family dispute between a husband and wife with 3 kids inside. Yes. That's just not what you do. No. But we boiled it down so simply between the haves and the have-nots and the people who are targets and those who are not, that it becomes a different story. And in terms of organizations that represent us, we have to be careful because every organized fraternity organization, they have their protocols, which are taught and learned and adhered to. And until those protocols are changed, the opening of someone's mind to a new way of doing something is not going to happen. So we have now a label, a movement that's labeled that immediately ostracizes others. That's all I'll say. We're getting closer, but, and every organization has their agenda. But you know what? How about, we instead of thinking about the I and the me, because I know people need confidence. So yes, I and me, I matter. But we and us, we matter too.
100%, 100%. I'm so with you. It's one of those things. I'm a biracial Black man as well. My mother is a Black woman. My father was half Spanish, half Black, and I grew up a little bit in South Central LA as a youngster. And we actually headed to Albuquerque to get a reprieve from some of the hostilities and the anger and the commotion going on in South Central LA. And I ended up here in Albuquerque, and when you're biracial, that's a whole nother element to this, this racial situation, a little bit of that school days, right? It speaks to, where do you fit in and how do you fit in and what lanes do you walk in and all that. I remember being in college when Do the Right Thing came out. I was a sophomore in college, and I walked out of that film pretty fired up and looking for how I could go out and express some of the anger that I was feeling. And I was with a bunch of my Black friends, and we had to kind of talk each other off the ledge because we were just so fired up and motivated to try to do something right now, impact some change right now. I mean, that movie did that then, and it still does that today. You know, Giancarlo, you speak to something that I talk about a lot, which is it doesn't matter really how successful someone is. It doesn't matter how many degrees or how much money someone has. I mean, you're one of the most well-known people in the acting world today, and in New Mexico, you're a bit of an icon, I would say. And yet you still have to drive in your car the same way that I drive in my car. You know, there's one race that we can't ever seem to escape or win, and that's racism, because it always catches up to us. We can't out earn it. We can't out educate it. We can't out earn degree it. We can't seem to out kick it. But what I'm trying to do with some of the work I'm doing is what you're saying is, you know, how do we reach out? How do we impact? How do we change some minds, open some minds to get some of that work done to where some change can occur?
Well, I think the answer is, you know, look, I was looking at the footage of Minnesota one morning, and they were fortifying the roof and putting sandbags and shields on the roof, but you could see the police looking over, right? It was a very particular news shot video. And I went, I wonder what they're doing up there. What are they thinking? They're gonna shoot some jokers down from the top. They're gonna drop some napalm. We're gonna drop some smoke bombs. I mean, I didn't know what or do they think incoming, or, you know? And so hours later, I look at the same feed and I realized it was night, and I'm looking at the shot and I'm realizing it's the exact same shot. But what were the differences? Well, they had widened out, right? And the building was burning on fire. People were crossing the frame, no justice, no peace, throwing stuff. And I went, huh? It looked like a frame of Do the Right Thing. I was just like, I sat here and scratched my head and looked at it again. And the building, it was, you know, conflagration, exact same shot as the morning. And I went, wow. And it made me, you know, think about how much have things changed? Has anything changed?
Yeah.
You know, there's still, and so you've mentioned something that makes me think about all this. It's, you know, until, you know, we were able to, and this movement got people's attention because the whole world joined in. But the whole world joined in are some European cities in a much more peaceful fashion than the way we ended up. So, which means that they were connected to the issue, many different colors of people, but they weren't as angry, Mike.
Yeah.
And so we have angry people here. Now we have more angry people. Because Black folks ain't the only ones that are angry. White folks is angry too.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that moniker that, you know, that's been out there, that's been doing great things, you know, it doesn't say nothing about white lives. So people are going, wait a minute, I'm not included in this. I have an opinion too. So now we got everybody's angry, frustrated. And what didn't work before, at the time of Do the Right Thing, Tamana Brawley, people protested then. Eric Gardner, people did things then. Well, what didn't work then was the conversation got diluted for some reason. The legislation wasn't included.
Mm-hmm.
The bills weren't written, right? The lawyers didn't come, right? Somewhere, somehow, it just fizzled away until the next African-American person was killed unjustly. And then the next, and the next. And then we kind of went, damn, kind of got used to it and kind of didn't take up that protest, right? Breonna Taylor, we could go, man. Don't get me started now.
No, I know, today was a bad day for that too.
What does that tell you? That tells you that the necessity and the need for conversation needs to be a route. It needs to be a road that keeps being explored, and that road needs to lead to legislation.
Yes.
And to organization, to root out the systematic sensibilities that people have who carry guns and are in the neighborhood. But now, think of something. When you go to the hood, Albuquerque, New York, Boston, what color do you see? Mostly on the street. Mm-hmm. You know, doing whatever business they have to do. You see them going to church and doing their thing, but you can feel the energy, right?
Yeah.
And so you feel a certain feeling. And so when a white police officer, even a Spanish police officer rolls through there, think of what they feel. They feel scared for their life. They're going to shoot first, ask questions later. They're not in a consciousness to understand that people have an underbelly and an under bubbling of feelings and emotions that come with previous indiscretions foisted upon them by law enforcement.
Right.
So they have an attitude. So you need a cop or a police officer who understands an attitude and who can step back a second and say, wait, I'm your friend.
Yes.
Hey, Mike, no, wait, Mike, I want to talk to you.
Yes.
You know what? You can't talk now? Cool. Walk down the block. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stay here.
Yeah.
Don't worry about my uniform. I feel you. That's what will change things.
Yeah, a little bit of humanity goes a long way. You know, approach our neighborhoods and our situations with a little bit of understanding. It's not that hard. It's not a hard research problem to understand why the neighborhoods may be the way they are and why the poverty is the way it is and why the stress may be the way it is. You know, intergenerational trauma is the game in the hood, not intergenerational wealth. So we could get these police officers to approach us in a little bit of a step back moment, you know, approach the situation, maybe take a step back, like you said, let somebody take a walk around the block, like you said, let's all calm down and then let's talk about it instead of approach and shoot. Yeah, 100%. The fellas that I'm working with, we are actively trying to impact change from a legislative position. Like, we're not trying to just march for the sake of marching. Our goal is to lift up, identify, find young Black men and women who are eager to be in the political arena, that are eager to be the next mayor, that are eager to be the judges on the benches that can impact policy and legislation. We're trying to find those people, lift them up, support them, give them what they need to get to those points. And that's how we can eliminate some of the systematic racism. Because right now we're just marching and the people making decisions are all the same people that have been since, you know.
Well, look, we have to give Los Angeles County some credit. You know, they want to defund the police. What does that mean? They're trying to figure it out so people don't get offended and feel like they're going to be preyed upon because there's no law enforcement. But it needs to be, don't get me wrong, I'm being very clear here. I'm not blaming in any way the African-American community.
Sure.
I blame the system for not having educated those who it hires in the right way, so that this systemic racism has been passed down and it's in the blood. Yeah. So then the blood's got to get thinned and changed, or you know, that, you understand what I'm saying? That has to happen, because it's not only against African-American people, it's against the yellow man, it's against the brown man, you know, and it's a way of thinking because people haven't started to understand each other, even with the link that we have to the whole world through these instruments that we have that can show and present itself. This is a system that's got to break. It's got to break first to be rebuilt, so that then you can get people with a different mindset. Yeah. And within that different mindset, it's inclusive, not exclusive.
Exactly.
And that will change. You know, it's going to take a lot of years because you need a whole system of people to go in and cut people, make decisions and go, you were fit for the job 5 years ago, 3 years ago, but you're not fit anymore.
No.
You know, I'm hearing some racist attitudes.
Yeah, we're moving forward.
Right? That's a hard one.
Yeah.
But
that is a hard one.
We have to get it done. We have to get it done because because you know what? My police brothers don't feel safe.
Yeah.
Right? My people don't feel safe.
Right.
It goes both ways.
Of course.
No one feels safe.
Yeah.
But we have an incredible, and it's Mike, you know, look, it's deep. We have a very deep gun rally. You know, we have a gun lobby that goes on. Of course, if you got all the guns off the street, you know, then we could just duke it out. And like in the old days, I might lose a few teeth, but at least I ain't dead in the gutter. Yeah. But
we've all had a few knocks to the head where we could get up.
But it's all connected.
Yeah.
Right? It's money, bombs, guns on our streets, death. It's all connected. And that systematic racism and this coronavirus, it's all linked. And some people just go, wow, let it go. But when you think about our Navajo Indians up on the border, and you think about our African Americans in Portland, LA, and New York, and our Hispanic brothers and sisters, there are people dying from this. And other people, you know, some people in our world think that that doesn't matter because, again, plays into that racist thought form, they weren't worth it anyway.
Correct. Right.
So, you know, the big stuff we're speaking about here, but I know I'm gonna bring it back around to the, you know, the similarities and the strong message of Do the Right Thing, which is so very important, and a film that lives on today in that message. I think in the end, you can have hope that things could change, but at least it's pointed up that everyone has. You know, I think of the scene with the corner men talking about the Asian grocer inside. And this is what the balance and the ballast of the movie is, right? Doesn't matter what race you are, you know, somewhere you may possibly have a feeling about the race that you're not, whether they're yellow, Navajo, Black, Puerto Rican, indigenous. You got if you have a feeling about that, then, you know, look, I'm sorry, then you're a racist. You've had racist thoughts.
Yeah.
So do you really feel like you belong to the humanity of and the community of the world, and can see anyone of any color as being your brother, sister, mother, father, aunt, nephew, lover, husband?
Yeah. Friend,
Right.
neighbor.
So, right. So
Yeah.
it's an investigation of self.
You
Right,
know,
yeah.
Giancarlo, let me ask you this. So when you were filming Do the Right Thing, you know, Danny Aiello, and he played iconic, you know, pizzeria owner, the tension build up, you know, between that character and Bugging Out, which you played, you know, and you being of Italian descent. Tell me a little bit about, you know, studying that character and really putting it out there to, you know, act the role with Danny in those scenes. You know, I don't see any African Americans up on this wall, and you know, it's an Italian place. You know, respect shown for other cross-cultural, you know, people. I mean, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, Spike, I believe, was really trying to make a very important point in those moments. However, the neighborhood evolved, there wound up being Sal's Pizzeria on that corner. And maybe when Sal started 30, 40 years ago, that was an all-Italian neighborhood. And maybe then some African Americans moved into the fringes of that neighborhood, and they served him up because they like pizza, and he's making his money off of, you know, African Americans. And maybe another few years went by, and the whole neighborhood became Black, and Sal started to get a little nervous about, man, you know, and then the son's talking about Moulagnans and used to be different and all this stuff. It is an interesting investigation of experience and how people move through their experience of their time and place. So Sal probably had a few experiences, as he does in real time with Bugging Out, who wants to, you know, put a little more cheese on them, right? You know,
Yeah.
and so he's vocal about it. But it'll cost you extra 50 cents, and Sal's already gone for the bat. Why are you gonna do that, right? Because maybe not even associated to color is that Bugging Out was a pain in Sal's ass.
Yeah.
But then Sal links it up, and then the sons come out, and it gets to be about all of you, you know? So Danny and I had a great relationship. I really liked him. Yeah, I'm from Italy. We were really related. I could understand most of what they were saying in Italian. Yeah. Because Danny spoke Italian. I adored him as an actor. I miss him terribly. He passed away this year. But what a prolific actor. And we had agreed to be open with each other, but not let, you know, the cat out of the bag until we were doing the scene. But he had known that my father, Giovanni, was from Italy, that I was born in Copenhagen, raised in Rome. And so we started talking food, and that movie really put me at home, because I wound up meeting Frank Vincent, God rest his soul, and a bunch of other Italian ex-mobster actors who, Chaz Palminteri, I met through circuitously through that connections on Do the Right Thing. Just so many Italian actors who eventually even invited me to play poker with them, and I got to know them a little bit. So it was a wonderful experience. So Danny felt like that to me. But when we had to do this last scene, it was so emotional that Danny just let go. And when you get emotional and you get, excited, you sometimes in an argument you lose what you say. And so Danny slipped, and called me a nigger, or was so close to it. And I spotted it and went, aha, and it was on. Like, we then just ripped it. And it was honest and it was true. And he was shaking and I was shaking and I was in tears. And he just, we cut the camera. Spike was smiling from ear to ear. We were both just done. So ashamed, so critical of some of the things that have come out of our mouths. And he opened his arms up, and we had to hug for 10 minutes, both in tears. Because we both knew that we had experienced, that's what I'm saying, when you have the experience, you know differently. If you go to the neighborhood and you're afraid, you've had an experience if something was off. That experience doesn't leave you. You go to the neighborhood, you get robbed. You go to the other neighborhood, the police stop you and put you in cuffs on the ground before they let you go. Trauma, right? So Danny and I had gone to the place of that scene where we had experienced some trauma. But we let it go and we flushed it out. And it was a really cathartic experience because it needed to go there. He was angry too. And that anger needed to be expressed. And luckily we were actors, we didn't hurt each other, but it got heightened. But we respected each other so much that it was a healing moment rather than an aggressively, a horrible moment that would come to a bad end.
Yeah. You've been known to play some amazing characters, whether it's television or on the big screen. And, there's been some roles that, you've had to dig really deep. Most people that don't know you, if they're watching, you meditate, yoga, amazing soul and love for the world, and they see some of the characters you play, whether it's, Gus, Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul. And, I'll never forget, it was season 4 of Breaking Bad, and you invited me to come to the set, and it was Box Cutter. Probably
yes.
Talked about episodes, of television in the history of TV. It's probably in the top 5 at least. And, I think everybody after that scene where you had to slit Victor's throat, you didn't have to, you chose to, and digging down deep with Brian and Aaron and, the set that was there. I mean, after that scene was shot, I think everybody was rattled and shaken. I could see how you were visibly, you needed a break and just, you needed to go let all the energy out, what other roles have you played that you can share where you've run into that type of challenge as an actor, or, positive challenge where you had to pull off that role?
I can go back to a real obscure film that I did called Go Tell It on the Mountain, based on a James Baldwin novel, where I played a young boy who got saved in the church, Elijah, who was at the forefront of the story. And look, as an actor, I believe there's always challenges to be able to be in the right space in the right moment in time. That the moment you spoke of earlier, in Box Cutter and in Breaking Bad, that was a bad day. that was a bad morning, because I remember the circumstances surrounding what I required and then what I was given, and having to work with some variables earlier in that day that weren't as I had visualized them. I remember, and it was the first day back from a hiatus. So like people were, the energy in the room was excitable, but people didn't know what they were doing. And so, and I had a trajectory of what I knew I wanted to do. I saw it, felt it all. But it started with them not having the right size boots for me. And it ended with me and a lovely actor, Jeremiah Bitsui, played Victor. It ended with us standing in more blood than you ever would want to imagine.
I remember that.
Picture, you know, and I had physical movements to make that had to be very precise because that's the way I choreographed it for myself.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of challenges on that day, which I just let roll off my back. So therefore, you know, when that kind of energy is happening, I'm off in the corner. Like I don't want to be fussed over. I had to have a certain focus. I had basically 10 minutes of a scene that I equated to being a Pinter play. There wasn't one word spoken. Everything was physical. So that's why you understand wrong shoes. Everything in that scene was physical. It was all looks until the very end of everything when I went back up those steps. Yeah. And so the changing of clothes, it was very particular and I had it very mapped out. It turned out really beautifully, but you know, early on, so the shoes got solved. Like they had, you know, I'm in the greatest catch gear and they have it all against the wall. That was all costumes. They had a size 12 boot for me, so I was swimming in them. I said, no, you guys knew it was a size 10. Okay, so I start looking around and I find a size 10 boot on the rack that they're using to display as part of the scene. And I go for those boots and a costume person says to me, you can't have those. Excuse me? You can't have those. Those are Brian's. Do you see what I have in my hand?
Yeah, right.
Do you see what I have in my hand?
Give me the boots.
I didn't say that. I turned around and walked away.
Yeah.
Right? Another costumer went, oh my God, kind of overheard it, tried to approach me. You know, we're so sorry. A third costumer immediately got in her car, drove down to Albuquerque to the fish shop, drove back with the right size boots. They said, no, you can have those boots. I said, no, those are Brian's. Right? And so that's how my day started. So I was like, and I think even Vince was directing that, and he saw me. I dropped down really, really deep, and I went, I'm not speaking to anyone. I'm not going to speak to anyone. Right? So I was in a cold mood.
You were in a box cutting mood.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, the one thing I think, you know, of course I've seen you behind the scenes of, you know, in production. The one thing that I think is so admirable, and I think so many people, your coworkers and the like, whether it's actors, directors, producers, is that you speak your truth, you know, and you know, you live your truth when it comes to little things, and you want things to be the best they can be for everyone involved. You know, what was your relationship like with Vince Gilligan? Wasn't Gus supposed to only be on for a few episodes?
When I first came here, yes, Gus was a guest star at the end of season 2. I did 2 episodes at the end of season 2, and they wanted me to do more, but they were going on hiatus. And so the wise thing for me at that point in time was, well, you know, look, you guys are going on hiatus, so why don't you just approach me next season, you know, and if you're still feeling that way and if I feel the same. And so that year went by quickly. I was working in a million different things at that point in time, and they did come back and want me to be a season regular, which I accepted. So I did season 3 and season 4 of Breaking Bad. I had a very good relationship with Vince. I love Vince's visual way of shooting as a director. He's so collaborative, and I think really, really learned the majority of his craft on directing on Breaking Bad when he directed episodes. So I always really enjoyed him. He always asked 1 or 2 really great questions. and was always very humble about if he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
So that's always, you know, that's always a good sign, because then you're still in wonder and you're still involving the actor. But yeah, you don't forget to think about, okay, you know, he's hearing his own words that he's written back to him. In some cases, if he wrote that episode that he would be directing. And so that's probably eating away at him. And is it sounding like he envisioned or heard it audibly like it would sound? So I really respect him very much. He has, so directors can be too hands-on or too hands-off.
Mhm.
And if they're too hands-on, you just don't even want to talk to them, because they overstate and oversay everything, as opposed to walking over and going, vulnerability, no menace at all. You don't have to. Like those are the best directors, like, because they see, they're not going to tell you how to do it. And so I love working with Vince. He's certainly a pleasure to be around and to also work with.
Yeah. Want to kind of switch gears for a second, then I'll turn it over to Mike. But you know, Chadwick Boseman passed away several weeks ago, and I think it was a surprise to so many, you know, fans around the world and people that knew him. You know, what is your take on his impact at such a young age? You know, going through Howard University and, you know, taking roles in the beginning that he felt like he needed to take, and then he stood up for what he believed in and started a role, then stepped away from it because of his beliefs, and as an African-American man and being stereotyped.
I don't know what that role was. What was that, Ivan?
You know, I need to look it up, but I saw an interview with him, and he spoke about it at the commencement ceremony at Howard University in 2018.
Yeah, it was early in his career when he was doing daytime soap operas.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, had him playing a young black thug type guy, and he decided that after playing a few episodes of it, it wasn't in his heart. He couldn't do it anymore.
Well, yeah, the character didn't have a father. The character, you know, the mother was never home. She was out on the streets. You know, the typical stereotype of a thug African-American character. And, you know, I just kind of wanted your take on, you know, that type of, you know, if it's still going on in the industry, how the whole Black Lives Matter movement has changed that in recent weeks or months. You know, have you seen changes to that?
No, look, I have a very similar story to Chadwick, and I certainly, he's a very deep loss to all of us in the industry, and to his artistry, and also personally. And, you know, I have a similar story where at a certain point in my career, I played those roles because as a young actor, you don't get that opportunity to be able to flex those muscles, which obviously probably contributed to all the emotions that I can access today. I then stopped playing those roles twice in my career. Once when I made a career out of playing Spanish thugs until David Labiosa came along, and gosh, I see his face, and so many of the other Spanish actors. One is a comedian who I see him, I can't remember his name, but there's a whole list of them. And I stopped playing Spanish because then they jumped on the scene. I was never Spanish. I was always faking the funk. And I stopped playing Black African-American hoods after I did an incredible episode of Holly and the Blowfish for NYPD Blue, where I died in Jimmy Smits's arms. And I realized, okay, I got great reviews for it and everything else. But I said, you know what? I don't want to portray that side of our underbelly of what people think, because these are writers in LA who are writing what they think is going on in Boston or New York, whether it's going on or not. But there's always, you know, reminds me of my Jewish buddy, Paul Budish, who used to say, you know, Giancarlo, Mal, bad, bad, bad. And I bust out laughing because I knew exactly what he meant. If you're a person of color, you're bad. So I honored Chadwick Boseman that he took that stand early, which allowed him to seek more historical roles like Jackie Robinson, that he was incredibly a profound actor, and to be able to be trained in London thanks to the tutelage of someone I adore, Felicia Rashad,
Right.
who brought him to the attention of Denzel Washington, who
Right.
paid for his schooling, acting school in England, because that opened his head to be able to see African Americans who speak with a British accent, who, you know, I mean, this guy was from Carolina. So his trajectory was on a different level. He had a lot to fulfill in his short life. And he, as of 4 years ago, I guess, when he found out he wasn't well, just kept moving in that direction to have his life line up with his art. And isn't that what would be wonderful for everyone? Look, everyone's path is different. If, you know, African Americans stop playing the thug and the drug addict role, maybe we'd stop seeing them. I wouldn't guarantee that. I would say maybe the consciousness of writers would change and they'd start to realize that there are actors out there who can do anything no matter what color they are. And yes, we certainly want to point up that there is a movement afoot in America, but there's also a movement against the movement, a political movement sabotaging the movements, right? So, you know, so how do you really get to people to have them understand that a lot of what's going on in our world right now is manipulated?
Yes.
So you have to allow people to a space to have hope and peace. And, you know, I would say, yeah, like maybe go inside a little bit and meditate so you're not so rocked by the movement of the world. I will say, I think of my father, an artist in Italy at the time of Mussolini and Hitler. I think of what people went through in the arts in London during all the bombings, the great theater town, and we don't have that yet. Let's hope we don't, but they made it through that. Yeah. So take what we have now, pandemic, racial unrest, civil unrest, and then put some bombs on it, some war in America on it. You know, when I think of that, I think we got to save this now. I think of gratitude, because we still haven't gotten to that position and that point. We can't.
Right.
Because then it makes our lives even more difficult, because then we're going to be losing children, our own, maybe losing our own lives. You know, it's time to figure out how to change the ideal of what society is. But that's deeply entrenched in corporate political tentacles that are connected to money. And so until we all get a different attitude surrounding money personally, I don't think a lot's going to change. You know, we had an election 4 years ago that went south, and we have an electoral college that has a hole in it. Did we fix it?
Nope. Nope.
I'm sorry now. I mean, we didn't fix that hole.
Yeah.
And also, maybe that's the first time in history that hole happened, but I would be on it as a people to fix that hole.
Right.
How could one person who has more votes lose?
Right.
Right.
There's a hole there. You know what I mean? Anyway,
yeah.
Enough of my political rantings, but I think it links up to really finding our hearts and souls again and finding a way to express ourselves to a new generation. Because what's happening now is we're teaching our children violence and chaos. And we're trying on one side. On the other side, we're teaching our people peaceful protest and change of system. And they're going to be resistors to that. But it's important that we understand that division is not working. The division, the ideal of that is not working. Even if you disagree that Black Lives Matter, even if you disagree that you have a right to stand in front of your house with an M16, you know, you've got to understand the threatening nature of that and the accessibility of that to people without money. That's why I was so rocked and moved by the African Americans who had their own militia. We don't see that. To be without money can't go buy an M16.
Mm-hmm.
I can't go buy a 9. I ain't got that 9mm cash.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So then who has those arms?
Yeah.
You know, people with money oftentimes aren't brown or Black or even Native, right? So when they start coming out of their drawers, you know, that's gets us nervous, man. It takes me back to the world's got to change and back to Europe when people fought with hoes and pitchforks. That's dedication. If they had to fight, we don't want to get there again. We just don't.
Right. Yeah, man, I appreciate that, what you're saying so much, because it just rings and resonates with me. I've got a 7-year-old daughter, and I know a lot of us on here are parents, and there's something about, I say to all my friends quite often, there's something about raising a daughter that's just different. And I just want to try to change the world for her. And I believe the importance of, we have to try to sit down with people and get them to look inward, like you just talked about, Giancarlo. Like, where's your heart? You know, and before you can attempt to go out into any community to try to impact any change, you have to start with your own heart. You have to start with your own situation, and be willing to have that difficult conversation within your family, within the folks that you live with, within your own community, before you can attempt to go out and try to impact any change greater than your own. But yeah, man, we got to find people that are willing to do that honest work, and that's hard, and it's emotional, and it's, you know, it's going to make you question some things, but it's got to start there, your own heart.
Look, Mike, while you're speaking, I have an image of the woman outside of Trump Tower, two black women outside of Trump Tower with paint, smearing the Black Lives Matter banner on the ground, screaming that they didn't do nothing for me. And then one woman reveals, you know, black man, black boy killed my boy.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I only mention this not to defame any movement at all, but understand that people have so many different feelings, passionate feelings, and loss surrounding this. Right. And so it's important to see things from all sides and open up the movement and the conversation, because there are black mothers and grandmothers and sisters who are hurting from losing a sibling in the neighborhood by a black hand.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, let's not, you know, things get convoluted when chaos begins and civil unrest begins. The looting starts. All these things start where people act differently. And the question would be, how do you still have compassion for those people? That's what goes up on the news to all the white neighborhoods.
Right.
That's what goes up on the screen.
Yeah, that's the peddling of fear that the suburban neighborhoods are going to be taken over by those people. Yeah,
precisely.
Right.
But how many times have we watched on a video as an African American has been killed by a white officer?
Right.
Right. So we can't convolute the issues. There's a basic downright humanity that needs to be recaptured. Absolutely. But I think about the person who right now, after 6 months of pandemic, has $900 left in their bank account. Mm-hmm. The money isn't coming anymore. How long before you get evicted? They put a stand down on that in a certain state, wherever you're in. But that person who's on the brink.
Right.
So are you on the brink? Are you going to break? And, you know, look, we all know that there are breaking points. So we hope that that person can find some help, you know, either through meditation or prayer or psychology, so that they don't break. Right. Because that's what's happening. People are breaking. Yeah. And we need to fix that and change that and have people feel equal and included. It's hard to, you know, have people feel included. Give them an idea of a situation that's happened to you that they could relate to. They may not be the same, but it's like this. And then, oh, wow, I felt that way.
Yeah, we're really not that much different. You know,
we're all human.
Exactly.
And we have a world of humanity.
Yes.
that of heart and also of head and brain and intellect that could help us and save us.
I agree. Hey,
want to do some Q&A?
Yeah, we're going into some Q&A right now. So here's the first one. It's from L.A. Avery. If you could help someone get on their path, get them out of the hood or wherever they're stuck, how would you go about doing that personally?
You know, I believe I'd go about it by saying, do it geographic. Part of being stuck anywhere is being stuck in your brain, that you don't feel like you have a way out. There's always a way out. You know, you can walk out. I heard a story about Native Americans when the men in certain tribes, they have their family and they support their family. And when they turn 50 years old, they live, that's their last year. Like that's their death year. 51, They walk away from the family they started, the community, everything. They take nothing and they walk away and they start a new life, right? So I mentioned that because that story gives me courage. Like when you think there's no way out, there is a way out. And when you invite that way in your thought form, it starts to come to you. You'll see the signs. There are opportunities. It's a great book by Tasha Silver that talks about the signs. You know, she's a yogi, spiritualist, and it's important to create it in your mind first.
Mm-hmm.
And once you create it in your mind, you know, all of a sudden, these little keys to opportunity start to happen. If you're unhappy where you are, in your job, in your home, in the hood, in the city, out of the hood, in suburbia, change it. But we as human beings, we have a hard time just going for that change because that's faith. We've got to step out and everything's going to be different. And so there's a lot of anxiety surrounding that. But that would be my strongest advice.
Got it.
Find a way to, you know, get an education that would prompt your ability to have a certain job, no matter how much money it pays, and find a new situation, you know?
Yeah, yeah. We got another one here from Cindy Kemp. How do we, as a society, make a positive change?
Vote.
Oh,
Vote.
yes.
Vote.
Yep.
Yep, all about it. Vote.
And the other piece of it is to be in service.
Yes.
I think we're living in the I and me world. When you start thinking about doing something. So when you're in service, like if you go serve somebody at a soup kitchen or you help someone even cross the street, if you're in the right place, there's a good feeling about it because they needed you.
Right.
So if you're looking around for opportunity to be able to help someone, those opportunities always arise.
Yes.
They're like the tests to see if you have the little stuff, the small compassion, which is really the big compassion, which means to do something to be in service. You should ask yourself, what am I doing? Am I doing anything to be in service? And if you are, and you're doing it not for your ego, but to be helpful, then it makes a change in the universe.
Yeah, it's like we're resilient people, I believe, you know, when you're kind of born into the neighborhoods and the poverty in which a lot of folks come from, we're resilient. We often are incredibly resilient, but with that resilience needs to be a willingness and an openness to accept help, to accept the change that presents itself. Are you willing to accept it and roll with it, or too stubborn to do that? I feel very strongly that we need to be of service, and we need to be pretty massive in that service. You know, I live by that mantra: to be massive, to be of service, and to be massive in your service. And if we can continue to live a life of service, like you just said, the world will drastically change quickly and rapidly, I believe. Another question for you, Giancarlo, from Thomas Price. Could you talk about getting your role in Taps, which I had on my list to talk to you about as well, one of my favorite movies you were ever in? Could you talk about getting your role in Taps and what it meant to you at that time?
Well, Taps was my first major studio film, so that was an important film for me to be a part of. It meant a lot to me. There were a lot of pieces to it. It was supposed to be done a year before we actually were able to shoot it, and I had read the script and liked the part, but went to read for Shirley Rich, a casting director in New York, who taped me and looked at me and said, "You need to learn how to act." And then she said, "Oh wait, let me qualify that. You need to learn how to act for the camera. You're a Broadway actor and you're reaching for the last row, and the camera, it's a different style of acting." And she gave me a suggestion to try to do some straight dramas and do some plays. So I went away crushed and realized what she had suggested, and I went down and worked at the Henry Street Settlement, tried to do as many places as I could. I got a call a year later saying, you know, this casting director, Shirley Rich, wants you to come in and audition for this movie, Taps. And I said, oh, they made that movie. And my manager, my agent said, no, they didn't. And she wants to see you again. Went back to read for her. Her mouth dropped open. This was at like 9 o'clock in the morning. Would you come back at 1 o'clock and read with one of our stars and for the directors and producers? She was blown away, which I did. And then the producer chased me out of the room and said, would you do this movie? And I was like, would I do this movie? I came back, I read with Timothy Hutton. There was some of my competition was outside. I wasn't bothered by that. I had a really good reading with Tim. And then they literally chased me out and asked if I would do it. So that was my experience with getting that role. And then I worked with an actor, George C. Scott, who I had been an extra in a movie he did and had an experience of him in a play I was doing. He was doing another play in the same theater. So I had met him prior to that film twice. Once he gave me some very drunken yet useful advice while I was in the middle of an interview. And then the second time was on the set of a movie he was doing as I was an extra, and I avoided speaking to him. And then the third time was in Taps, where he delivered a 3-page speech and did it exactly the same every single time for 15 takes.
Wow.
Touched his eyeglasses at the same place. And I had known his wife, Colleen Dewhurst. She gave me a Theater World Award in 1981. So Taps was a special, special film because there were a lot of great actors in it who eventually went on to become stars. And it was also special to me because I had gone to 2 years of military school at Mount St. Joseph Military Academy in Newburgh, New York. And we shot the film at, we were in Wilming, we were down in Delaware at a military academy in Delaware, where we shot in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, actually, where we actually shot the film. So I had a connection.
Yeah.
To that whole world.
Yeah, that was a great one. I got another question for you. Renee Mendez, what is your absolute favorite role to play, and what is your dream role?
My favorite role to play is always the role that I'm playing now, because that to me is the being in the present. I have movies that I have not seen that I've been a part of, and some movies that I have seen where I've been a part of that I think I kind of like. But if I'm working on a role, I don't go to the movies, I don't watch television, I do none of that. I stay within the confines of my own self to be able to be original and organic in trying to create a role. So I have, I have a handful of movies that I probably like more than others, but I don't really have a favorite. So my patent set answer is, the movie or the television show that I'm working on right now in the present.
Okay. Here's another one from Reagan Ironman. In Breaking Bad, how did you learn Spanish and portray a Chilean character so well?
I have experience of Spanish because I learned street Spanish accent, Puerto Rican accent in New York when I was young, which sounded very different than any kind of proper Spanish. I think I'd had a year of Spanish in school and never really, picked it up much except for dialogue I had to use as an actor. And certainly when Breaking Bad came along, I was happy that was familiar. I have a really good ear. I spoke Italian when I was young, a little bit of Danish, and so I can pick up Spanish pretty quickly. However, in my creation of Gus, I quickly noted that Gustavo Fring was a Chilean. And so they had a very different way of speaking because they were more upper class, and certainly Gus Fring, in the world in which I created him, was someone who was sophisticated.
Right.
So our first season, my first 2 guest spots, I just would do my own pronunciation, and that was kind of way before the time you could just go on the computer and hear the sound. And then they had a Spanish coach in our 3rd season because there were so much Spanish, and some of our other actors who are Spanish didn't speak Spanish. So, and it reminds me of the day we were shooting a very important scene where Max is killed at the pool in Breaking Bad. Donny Ladio is there.
Yeah.
Max Arciniega is there.
Yeah.
Mark Margolis, the actor, is there. So we had also Stephen Bauer. So Stephen Bauer was from Puerto Rico, but knew street Spanish, but he really knew Puerto Rican Spanish. Mark Margolis, he had to figure it out. And she'll say, "Why are you writing me all this Spanish? I'm a Spanish New York Jew. I don't speak this." Right? So then they got a coach. And that day we had 6 different Spanish speakers, right? 6. And so it made it complicated. And me, who learned pages of Spanish dialogue and kind of knew what it was saying, but I was speaking Chilean. So that was a challenging day where I thought I fell and flopped on my face. But the more compliments I get from people, it's a great question to ask. They say to me, they're from Chile. I meet people from Chile and they go, "Wow, your accent was right there." I'm kind of good at it. And blessed to be so with as much Spanish as we had in season 3 of Breaking Bad. Even the Spanish guys were crying. Oh my goodness.
Here's another one. This is from Silvana Davia Carlin. How was working with Armin Mueller-Stahl in the movie Night on Earth?
Very nice. Especially because I had a film crew. I was in front of a film crew yesterday to honor Armin Mueller-Stahl, who is turning 90 in December. And so Night on Earth is a favorite film of mine, and was able to honor Armin yesterday. Film crew flew out from LA and we did a nice interview and a happy birthday wish for him. I love working with him. He's a fantastic actor and he has 2 different careers. If you look back in his early career, he has a ton of German movies that he did. He was blacklisted in his country for being courageous and speaking out. Mm-hmm. He was born in Prussia, had to get to Germany, was blacklisted, and which is how he started to play Jews and other Germans. Eventually came to America and did Music Box with Jessica Lange, and should have won an Academy Award for that. Did Night on Earth with me, and then eventually got nominated for Academy Award for Shine. But a very full actor, a theater actor, someone who I immediately related to, who taught me quite a bit about being here and being present and being here now. Armin is a writer, writes children's books, has written children's books, a classical artist, and a violinist in his younger years. So a prolific artist. You know, I would say to any artist, if you're planning on being an artist, do it for the right reasons, and then you'll thrive. Armin is one of those. He's got a beautiful eye, beautiful hand, but a very profound and prolific actor. When I watched a piece of Eastern Promises, I was jealous because I had wished I'd watched it before I created Gus Fring. He plays a villain in Eastern Promises that is so creepy, yet has fatherly, yet it's just oozing with charisma and naturalness. And so I loved Armin and I really loved working with him. Awesome. So guys, I'm running out of time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
No, that's okay. Giancarlo, we thank you so much for the time that you have given. You know, we know how busy you are with the projects you're working on. And, you know, everybody should be tuning into The Mandalorian, to The Boys. There's also Unpregnant that was filmed here in New Mexico. That's available. You know, we're going to be catching the final season of Better Call Saul. It's going to be filmed sometime when COVID is over here in New Mexico. And that season, I'm sure, is going to be something to really look forward to for everybody who's a Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul fan and just fans of yours. So, you know, I can't thank you enough. Mike, thank you so much for your time.
Nice to meet you, Giancarlo.
Thank you, Mike.
Being
So
a part of this
appreciate our conversation. Truly do. And Ivan, I want to thank you for all you do for the community. And I hope this was helpful. And, you know, New Mexico is a great place to live and foster creative pursuits. Better Call Saul will be coming back in March, it looks like. There are movies coming back in, so things are starting to ramp back up again. And so happy to have the opportunities to be able to work here. As I do with another show, Godfather of Harlem in New York, and also Dear White People in LA. It'll be nice to get back to have some inspiration on the airwaves.
Yeah, yeah. So we thank you so much, Giancarlo, as always. Best to the family, safety,
Thank
and
you.
we look forward to having you on again at a future date.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
I want to thank the entire audience as well for tuning in. Intimate conversation with Giancarlo Esposito, and we have some films.